G'day, this is James here, James Ray with Electrifying Australia. In this video, I want to go over some one thing that people often say have a concern about when they're looking into solar and batteries and getting quotes, and that is that they're looking at multiple different quotes, and sometimes they say to us, "Oh, you're too expensive compared to one of another quote that we've got." And so what we often do is we find out more about the quotes that they've actually gotten, what brands they've been looking at, and like just to see if we're comparing apples with apples or apples with oranges. Because at the end of the day, I'm sure you understand that not all solar companies are the same, and that not all solar panels and batteries are the same, because sometimes people can have that misconception that they all kind of seem the same and do the same thing, where in reality what actually happens is that people get these really cheap systems, and because the products or the company itself doesn't really have much of a track record for long-term reliability, or the track record that it does have isn't very good, then they end up experiencing more issues and problems down the road, like a lot of the customers that have gotten help from them have experienced, and that's reflected in the 1-star reviews of the solar company itself and of the products. So it's always worthwhile looking at the reviews of anything you're like looking at possibly investing in or getting, because you want to make sure that you avoid those issues. And I'm sure you understand. I understand that and don't really have to explain that, but sometimes people just aren't really aware of the differences, so it is important to go over it. And so what we often say is it just depends, what the results that you really want to get, because you could go with something cheaper, and it just depends whether you want to take more of a risk that you're going to run into more issues down the road, like the system failing after a year, 5 years, which we often see reflected in complaints, or if you or if the company, you take a risk that the company will go out of business, and then you're not really able to get the support that you need to get it fixed. Because some people will say to us that, oh, if the company goes out of business, so they can just get someone else to fix it. And that's a common misconception that people have, because what really happens is if a company's gone out of business and they become a solar orphan, then what happens is that when the company goes out of business, they go to try to get it repaired by another company, but the company doesn't want to touch it because they don't want to take on a liability for repairing a system that somebody else has installed. So it ends up having to be replaced so that they can actually lower their electricity bills. Otherwise, they just keep increasing if they don't do anything. So again, it just depends on what you want to get out of getting it out of solar and batteries. If it's more important to you to save a little bit of money now, like getting something cheaper, and then possibly having to pay to get it replaced, like having a higher risk of having to do that, or if it's more important to you to really have more certainty about the overall reliability that the system that you have, like for the long term, and the overall savings that you'll get on your electricity bills, so that way you can really get more back in your pocket for the long term and not have to deal with all these issues that a lot of other people experience when they go to get a cheaper battery, like long installation time frames, so they keep having to pay for their electricity bills for that time, or that it just takes forever to get installed, or that it's not very reliable, so it ends up failing after a fairly short period of time. And even though it's supposed to have a warranty of 10 years, because the company gets snowed under by all these complaints from all these systems that are failing, then they end up going out of business. So because they've gone out of business, it doesn't get replaced under the warranty. So, because even if the company that installed it goes out of business, as I mentioned, like, other companies don't want to touch it, so they end up having to pay to get it replaced. So you could go and find something cheaper. It just depends what you want to get out of it. Just to reiterate that, because we could get cheaper brands from our suppliers, but we don't, because I'm sure that, we're not sure that they're going to still be around in 10 years' time to be able to honor warranties. And there have been a lot of manufacturers and companies that are no longer in business because often, as I mentioned, they've gotten snowed under by complaints from customers. So, like, some of the brands we work with, like Tesla, they were founded in 2003, and they have a triple B financial status, or a triple A status for energy storage bankability. So, because they're a global publicly traded company, we can have much more certainty that they will still be around in 10 years. And in fact, they may have even grown to be a much higher value company than they are today. And another brand that we work with is Sungrow. They were established in 1997, and so both brands have offices in Sydney, and Tesla also have an office in headquarters in Australia, in Melbourne. So I mentioned the term solar orphan. Have you heard of that term before? If you look it up, basically there were like 600 solar companies that went out of business between 2011 and 2019, and more since then as well. So what that means is that all these companies have gone out of business. The systems that were installed and the homeowners that have those systems, they're called solar orphans because the company's gone out of business. And so when the system fails, it means they have to go and get it replaced because the company isn't around to fix it anymore. So the warranty is only as good as the company that installed it and the manufacturer as well that's behind it. So sadly, that's what happens with these people. They're trying to save a bit of money up front, but they end up having to spend more down the road to get it fixed. It's like, have you ever heard the saying, you pay cheap, you pay twice? Because I'm sure you've heard of people having experiences, and you might have even had it yourself, of, you go to get something really cheap, like on eBay or Gumtree, or like a used car, and then you end up having to spend more to get, like, if it's a used car, you end up having to spend more to get it fixed, or it just falls apart and it just becomes economical to replace it. So it's, again, it just depends what you want to do, the results that you want to get out of it. Save a little bit of money up front, but risk having to spend more down the road and save less in the long term, or get something more reliable, spend a little bit more now, or not even have to spend more up front, but just break it up into more easily digestible payments, where those payments are basically swapping out the electricity bill that you would have to pay in any case, and so your monthly, quarterly expenses on electricity are lower, and where you're avoiding the rate hikes from the power companies, where people that don't get solar and batteries, they're seeing their bills gradually increase by 5, 10, up to 23% a year. And so, because the electricity prices have increased by 20 to 60% in the last 3 years, they end up having to see their bills like double in 10 years or more over 20 years if they stay in their property for that long. So yeah, it just depends what you want to do. If having more, like, if saving a bit of money now is important to you, if you're going to buy something where you put in the funding up front, if that's more important to you, then you could get something cheaper. Or I mean, because would you really want to take the risk of the system failing or running into more issues where you end up having to spend more in the long term? Or is it more important to save more money in the long term, have more certainty around that by getting something more reliable, where you can only because you can only claim the federal battery rebate once as well, which I didn't even mention, because if you claim the federal battery rebate once with getting a cheaper system, and then when you go to get it replaced, you can't claim the federal rebate again, and so you end up again also having to spend more in the long term because of that. So what do you feel that you actually really need to do to really make sure that you can save more money on your electricity bills in the long term, and really have more certainty about the reliability of the system that you do get and the results that you get from the system, so that you can avoid having to deal with issues that of people that end up getting something cheap? What do you feel you need to do? If you feel like it could be sensible to look into to get a system that could be more reliable, then feel free to reach out to us. You can leave a message in the comments, or there's a contact number on our website, electrifyingaustralia.com.au, and we'll be happy to see how we might be able to help. We would need to assess your energy and look at your side and look at your electricity bills, what kind of rate hikes you've been getting in the last 3 years compared to what your bills were like 3 years ago, and then take it from there with looking at possible options to help to lower your expenses on your electricity. All right. Hope this video has been helpful. Take care.